folks, and welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and I certainly appreciate everybody tuning in today. I have on the line Mr. Brandon Turbeville from BrandonTurbeville.com. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing okay, Rory. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Well, I certainly appreciate it, and we have a lot to talk about, so let's just jump right in. What do you say?
Sounds good to me.
What happened in Egypt with the Arab Spring? I guess that's been 3 years ago, 4 years ago now. I think that what happened at the people living day to day were able to amass and spread information as quickly as they did and to make things happen as quickly as they did. I think that really it took them by surprise.
Well, with the Arab Spring, I'm actually a bit of a different opinion on that because
Okay.
a lot of that was controlled by the West to overthrow Mubarak. And I've done a few articles on color revolutions, and social media was one of the things that they used. It was one of the things that helped make these color revolutions so successful, was that they had the ability to communicate and flash mob and that type of thing. So it's definitely been put out there with a purpose, though. I mean, I think we can use it to do good as well. I don't know how good we're using it, but
I understand that aspect of it, but I also understand the other side. I mean, as far as, because I look at Ferguson also,
mhm.
and there was a lot of people, and I understand that the powers that be came in there and they had their hands all over it. But I also see there was a lot of good that came from what happened in Ferguson as well, as far as people uniting, as far as people coming together, whereas the whole goal was to divide and conquer. That goal was achieved, but I think that there was also an equal backlash of uniting people on that at a grassroots level.
Yeah, well, certainly things like Facebook and Twitter, they can be, well, I guess I haven't really mastered Twitter as well as the other stuff, but those things can be used to bring people together who either are different parts of the country or just right in your own neighborhood that you didn't know were there. I've met a number of people off of social media that became good friends. So it can be used for good purposes.
Yes, and
I think, yeah.
well, I think that the powers that be, well, obviously from your research and from what you've just said, as far as the color revolutions and what happened with the Arab Spring, that you're well versed in how these criminals use these tools against us. One of the things that's really on my mind, based on some of the articles that I've read by you, is about the propaganda that's going on. I'm sure you're well aware that propaganda was legalized in this country, I think 2 years ago or 3 years ago,
Hmm.
and is now one of the greatest weapons that the MSM and the federal government use against us, just the ordinary citizens. And I've long argued that the typical American citizen, the blue collar crowd, they're so beat up at the end of the day, just like you're coming home from work. And I used to come home from work and I would just be beat up, but I had a determination that most people don't have. You have that same determination that most people don't have. And they just have little capacity for the research of the type that we have dedicated ourselves to doing. And I'm not making excuses for anyone. We as American citizens have a responsibility to our country, to ourselves, to stay informed. But unfortunately, most people get their information from TV and radio. And how do we break this cycle, Brandon, and get or begin invading the living rooms of the people that are hypnotized by the Kardashians or Dancing with the Stars? Or how do we reach them?
That is a good question. I wish I had an answer to that. Um, It's very difficult. I mean, all you can do is try to get people one on one, but at the end of the day, that television is the biggest weapon that that they've ever invented, right? And if you can't get people away from that, I mean, how to get people to do it on a mass level? To be honest, I'm not sure you're ever going to get people to do it on a mass level. But if you could get the right amount of people who were active, the people who do question things, even throughout all the propaganda, then I think you might be able to affect some change.
Are you seeing any change? Is your readership going up, or are more people picking up your work from around the web? Or what is your personal experience as far as people awakening at this point?
I feel like there's more people waking up to what's going on and paying attention. At the same time, I feel like there's another, just about an equal amount of people who are almost regressing and getting worse. Becoming more, I don't know what the militant in their ignorance.
Yes.
And I do think, unfortunately, there's so many traps for people who wake up, the things that they can get led into, get off the beaten path, or the narrow path, and then
Yeah.
they can be dragged off into outer space somewhere. And um, it's very difficult. I mean, I do see more and more people who are coming to an awareness that wasn't present before. Whether maybe not fully, maybe some
Right.
people approach it in different aspects and different locations, different corners of all this stuff. Some natural health, some politics, some anti-war protest, or some just in terms of the whole consciousness thing or something. But a lot of, but I think a lot of people are simply going back into the system and regressing. And I still think there's an overwhelming majority who just don't care. And and I don't
Uh,
think you can make them care.
that's and thank you for that, because that's what I see. I see a number of people, or I see more people asking questions. This I see the same thing. I see this regression into more of a militant stance of ignorance, that I'm not going to change, and I don't care what the facts are. I don't want to know what the facts are. I know what I know, and that's all that matters. And your article, American Sniper,
Yeah, lies and propaganda.
yeah, American Sniper, lies and propaganda to divide a nation. I mean, I think that is a great microcosm of what of the question that I ask. That the propaganda is getting so thick at this point, and it ties into the social media, which is what we were talking about a minute ago. And speaking of American Sniper, you did a great job with this article, and just how do we get people to see, just because I don't think that Chris Kyle was a good person, I think he's a murderer, that doesn't mean that I'm not a good citizen. I mean, is that possible, or is that in the same vein of what we were just saying?
Well, I guess it depends on who you're talking to. I just some people are not going to come to that conclusion ever, and I think some people have to kind of witness it up front. They have to see the repercussions of what they've been supporting before they realize that they can't support this anymore. And I've actually known a lot of veterans who would share my opinion and do share my opinion about Chris Kyle and about the war and about how I approached the article. But the ability to break through that propaganda, you know, um, especially if someone's been in the military, because it's not just media propaganda for someone who's been in the military. It was drilled into them, and then they went through a horrible experience if they ever saw combat. And that's you're really asking somebody to kind of break through an enormous amount of propaganda and training that it can be done, but if there's a method to do it, I'm not really sure if there's a method.
One of the things that's really has been bothering me for a couple of weeks. I wrote an article about 3 weeks ago called Propaganda 101. Um, Operation Mockingbird continues. And in that article, I was citing social media and the importance of it, as far as what you and I were talking about a minute ago, as far as it being a weaponized propaganda tool for the powers that be. And it I just see that being one of the absolute strangleholds on our society, because I don't know if you saw or not, or aware of the Ask the White House Twitter campaign that they did like 2 days after the State of the Union. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see it. I can only imagine.
Oh my God, it was anyway. Um, I did an interview with Eric Dubin over at the News Doctors, and it was the day after that had happened, or maybe it was the day of. But anyway, I captured a bunch of the photos from these so-called leaders, and they had people from the State Department sitting there, and I'm not joking, Brandon. They had on the cheesehead hats, they had on the